Hi guys, you're welcome back to my channel. My name is Stella. All right. So in this video, we're going to be transferring all our patterns to fabric, and we'll go ahead and sew. Okay. Now you have seen the outfit on me, and the fitting is just lovely. All right. So we'll jump right into the transferring of the patterns to fabric. Hi guys, you're welcome back. All right. So in this video, we're going to be transferring all our patterns to fabric, okay, which I have done to save us time. Now I'm going to arrange them. Okay, so this is the center front piece. You can still recognize our labels. Okay, so this is the center front piece, and this is the side front. Okay, so let me take off the pin so we can see the pattern clearly. Okay, so this is the side front piece as well. Okay, so this is the center front and the side front. Now for each of them, I cut out both the fashion fabric and the lining. We're going to be doing an inseam finishing for this dress. Okay, so for each one, now the center front is cut on fold, this side is on fold, same thing with the lining. So this is the side front. Okay, now this is the center back. Okay, this is the center back piece, and this is the side back piece as well. Okay, so let's talk about the allowances that I added. So this is the center back. I added my 1 inch zip allowance here. Okay, then we have ½ inch here for joining to this lower part. Okay, then we have ½ inch on the sides, ½ inch here, ½ inch on the shoulder, and ½ inch on the neckline as well. Okay, every other place is ½ inch except the center back, which we added 1 inch for the zip. All right, now this is the side back as well. So we have ½ inch here as well, ½ inch on this side, ½ inch on the arm side, okay, which is our armhole. Then for our sewing allowance, we have 1.5 inches. So our sewing allowance on this side back is 1.5 inches. All right, so for the front as well, here is on fold, so there's no allowance here because it's on fold. So we have ½ inch on the neckline, ½ inch on the shoulder, ½ inch this way, okay, ½ inch all through. So for the center front, we have ½ inch all the way as our allowance. Now for the side, okay, the side front, we have ½ inch all the way here. Our sewing allowance also for the front is 1.5 inches. Okay, so this is the way it is. We have ½ inch all the way. Our sewing allowance for the front is also 1.5 inches. So this is it for the up part. Okay, now let's look at the lower part of the dress. Okay, so this is the front. Okay, so this is the front piece of the lower part. Now first thing I did is to add 2 inches to the hem. Okay, so that's our hemming allowance of 2 inches. Now I added 2 inches also as our side seam allowance. All right, then I have ½ inch on the waistline for joining to the half length. Okay, so this is it for the front. Now I also cut the same thing on the lining as well. So this is the main fashion fabric and the lining fully pinned. Now this is the back piece of the lower part as well, both the main fashion fabric and the lining. I went ahead to add 2 inches as our hemming allowance. Now this is the side back. I added 2 inches as our sewing allowance as well. Now I went ahead to extend the dart lines on the waist, okay, and I gave it tiny notches. Now this is our center back line, and I added 1 inch as our zip allowance. Okay, now I went ahead to notch the hip line so that it will be easier for us when we are doing our final measurements. So this is it for the lower part. Now we'll go ahead and bring in our interfacing. Okay, so I showed us this interfacing when we were doing our basic skirt. So I'll go ahead and iron this down to the lining of the half length, okay, and also from the waist to the hip line of the skirt part. Now you can iron it both on your fashion fabric and on your line. There's what we call padding, okay, to pad the bust area, just to give it that lift. But recently I stopped padding my outfits because there are some styles that when you wear, even after you have padded, you may still need to wear a bra. Now it looks off when your bra straps are showing on your shoulder, so I use bra cups to pad all my outfits so that when I wear it I don't have to wear bra. I mean, that's the comfort that we all want. Okay, so I will not be padding with this wording. Okay, so this is the medium thickness, and I will not be making use of it. So I'm going to be using bra cup to I'm going to tack my bra cup on the lining. Now I tack my bra cups to the lining and not on the fashion fabric. You can attach it to your fashion fabric, but I attach mine to the lining alone. Now when it's time, I will show us how to attach this to the lining. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and iron down the interfacing, and we'll begin our joining. All right, guys, so I'm done ironing the interfacing to the lining pieces alone. Okay, now I went ahead to mark our sewing line, okay, our sewing allowance of 1/2 inch. So I have it clearly marked on all the patterns. Okay, this is easier so that you don't go joining on 0.75 instead of the 1/2 inch. Now I went ahead to also mark it on the center back. Okay, now I repeated the same thing on the fashion fabric as well. You can see our 1/2 inch clearly marked. Now on the center back, I marked 1 inch for the zip allowance. Now I have a detailed video on how to join a princess dart. Okay, so I'll leave the link in the description box. Now I'll go ahead and join this, and I will see us. Okay, so for the skirt part, I went ahead to mark out our dart, okay, our dart of 1 inch. I did the same on the other side of the back of the lining as well. Now I marked our 1 inch zip allowance down to the hem. Okay, now for the slit, I first came up by our 2 inches hemming allowance. Now our slit opening is 9 inches. But remember, for the lining, it's best you come up by 0.25. So our slit for the lining is 9.25. Now I did the same on the fashion fabric as well. I marked our 1 inch zip allowance. I marked the dart, okay, on both sides, and our slit opening as well. I first came up by 2 inches from the hem, okay, which is our hemming allowance. Then I went ahead to mark our slit um opening of 9 inches. Okay, so I'll first go ahead. I'll start stitching from the waist to the hip line with a loose stitch. Okay, and once I get to the hip line, I'll tighten my stitches to the normal tight stitch down to the slit opening. Then we'll continue with a loose stitch down to the hem, just like we did in our basic skirt video. All right, now for the front fashion fabric as well, I went ahead to just cut out this lace, okay, just to design it, and I used the black fabric to tape the mouth of the lace. Okay, so it's nothing serious, it's just basic. All right, so I'll go ahead and do all those joinings, and we'll continue. Hi guys, you're welcome back. All right, so I have gone ahead to join the skirt. Okay, so I have joined the center back, okay, pressed it, just the same thing that we did on our basic skirt. All right, so I also went ahead to shape it just like we did in our basic skirt class. Okay, so I did the same on the skirt, on the main fabric, and on the lining as well. Okay, you guys remember our method: lining fabric to fabric and lining to lining. So for the lower part, I'll go ahead and join the fabric to fabric. Okay, I'll join them separate, and I'll also join the lining just like we did on the skirt. I'll join, then press all the side seams open. Okay, so this is the top part of the dress. Okay, now I went ahead to join all the pieces. Okay, so this is the front. I've joined all the side pieces to the center. I did the same on the lining as well. Okay, so I have all the pieces joined. All right, now let's proceed to do our shaping. Okay, but before that, I went ahead to tack the bra cups on the lining like I explained for us. Okay, so I'll do a separate video on how to place the bra cups, okay, and how to tack. You can see how neat it is. So I have the bra cups tacked to it, but one major secret you need to know is that you need to place it to rest on the underbust line. Okay, so but I'll do a separate video on the placement of the bra cup. But let's proceed. So to do your shaping, Now remember, we are after a perfect fit. Okay, now if you go ahead and just measure the bust and the under bust of just this fabric without placing it on this bra cup, most of the time when you're done with the outfit and you wear it, it will be tight. Okay, and that's not what we want. We want a perfect fit without any form of adjustments. Okay, so what I usually do is to pin the fashion fabric on the lining with the bra cups. So I'll first tack the bra cups to the lining, then I'll come in with the fashion fabric like so, and I'll go ahead and pin them. Okay, I'll align all the sides, all right, this way. So I'll just go ahead and pin round. Okay, so I'm done pinning the sides. Now let's do our little write-up before we proceed to measure. All right, so you come to your book and you write bust front. Okay, BF is for bust front, and then bust back. All right, under bust front and under bust back. Okay, under bust front and under bust back. Then we're writing the waist front, okay, and the waist back. All right, now that we have this right up down, we'll proceed to take our measurements. So let's begin. You can see the way I pin the sides. All right, now this is another way for you to know if you're correct. The two must be equal. So both your fashion fabric and the lining, can you see, they must be equal. Okay, so let's proceed to measure the bust. Okay, so you place your tape from the side, okay, and we will run the tape this way, stretching out, because this is how it's going to stretch out on your body. Okay, this way, and then you pass your tape also on top of the second bra cup, okay, like so, stretching out to the second side. And what we have here is 22.5. Now I like to take each measurement twice, okay, just to be sure. So I'll pass the tape across the first cup, stretching out this way, okay, then I'll pass it to the second cup, stretching out this way, okay, to the side. What we have here is 22.25. all right, so I'll go ahead and write it down. 22.25, that's for my bust front. Then we'll measure our under bust. You remember our notches, so I'll go ahead and place my tape on the under bust notch, okay, and I'll stretch out the tape. Now what I have is 20 inches, okay, so for my under bust what I have here is 20 inches. So I'll go ahead and write it 20. Now let's measure the waist. So I'll place my tape also on the waist, okay, like so, and I'll stretch out the waist. So for the waist what I have here is 20.25. Can't ignore any figure, no matter how small. So what I have here is 20.25. I'll go ahead and write it 20.25, okay, and that's it for the front. Now I'll come in with the back. Now for the back, you don't have to pin them together, okay. Now I also wanted to show us this excess on the sides, okay. When you see this, you don't have to worry. When it's time, we will shape this out, okay. So let's also measure the back. So we'll measure the bust for the back, okay. Place our tape here, okay, at this very point, and we will stretch out. So for the back, our bust for the back is 22 inches, okay, it's 22. Now our under bust, okay, so I have a notch here indicating the under bust. And how did I get that? I simply placed the front on this back, okay, and I marked the under bust point, okay. So you also place your tape from this notch here to the other notch, and what I have here is 21.5 inches, okay. So I'll go ahead and write it 21.5. Now let's measure the waist for the back. So I'll measure this way. Now the waist on the back is also 21.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and write it 21.5 inches. Now we'll proceed to do our addition, okay. But before we go ahead and add up, now okay, so the actual bust round So the actual bust round that we're working with is bust 40. Okay, the under bust round that we're working with is 34. Okay, and the waist round that we're working with is waist 36. So now that we have these three figures out of the way, we'll go ahead now and do the addition. Okay, now let's go ahead and add up. So we're adding the bust front and the bust back, and the bust front, and the bust front is 22.25 plus the bust back 22, and then we have 44.25. Okay, now we'll subtract it from our bust round 40. Okay, and we have 4.25. Now we'll divide that by 4. So for our bust, what we have for our shaping is 1 inch. Okay, it's 1.06, but we'll just approximate that to 1 inch. Okay, so let's go ahead and add for our under bust. Now I like to add 1 inch extra to my under bust for ease. Okay, so I like to add 1 inch to my under bust. Now instead of 34, we'll make use of 35. Okay, so I add 1 inch to my under bust round alone. Okay, so let's go ahead and add up. Under bust front 20 inches plus under bust back of 21.5. That will give us 41.5 inches. We're subtracting 35 from it, and we have 6.5 inches. Okay, so we'll go ahead and divide that 6.5 by 4. That will give us 1.6. So my under bust is 1.6. Okay, let's move over to the waist. Now we'll add up. Our waist front is 20.25 plus our waist back is 21.5. Okay, and we have 41.75. Now we'll subtract my waist round of 36 inches, and we have 5.75. We'll divide that by 4. And for my waist, I have 1.43. Okay, so it's 1.4. Now these are the measurements that I'm going to be marking on the fashion fabric. Now for the lining, okay, so for the lining, I will repeat the same 1 inch mark on my bust line. Okay, for the under bust on the lining, I'll mark 1.25. I told us that your lining is supposed to be freer, a bit free with 0.5 inches. Okay, so on the lining for the under bust, I'll mark 1.25 there. Okay, for the waist, I'll repeat the same 1.4 inches. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and mark all our measurements. Okay, so, and I have also unpinned the front piece. Okay, so I've unpinned it because we need to mark both on the lining and on the fashion fabric as well. So I'll mark this, I'll take it to the sewing machine, and I will join the sides. Now we're joining fabric to fabric. Okay, so I'll mark on the sides and we're joining. Then I'll repeat the same thing on the lining. Lining to lining will also join. Now the center back, which is for our zip, is still closed. We have not taken off the loose stitch. So I'll do all these joinings and I'll press the seam lines open. Okay, then I'll come back and show us what next to do. Okay, so on a second thought, let's go ahead and mark it, since that's what this video is all about. Okay, so our bust measurement is 1 inch. Now we'll go ahead and place our tape, okay, this way, and I'll mark my 1 inch here. Now on the under bust line, we'll mark our measurement of 1.6. okay, so this is my 1 inch, 1.5 and 1.6. okay, so I have the marking there. Now our waist measurement is 1.4. okay, so I'll place my tape like so. I'll mark my 1.4. remember, it's not 1.5, is 1.4. okay, so I'll go ahead and connect this this way, okay, with a slight curve like so, okay, like so. All right, and this is it for the front. I'll repeat the same thing on the back as well. I'll go ahead and mark 1 inch for the bust. The under bust, I'll mark my 1.6, okay, 1.5 and 1.6 on the under bust. Then on the waistline, I'll mark 1.4, okay, and I'll go ahead and connect it also with a slight curve, okay. So let's go ahead and mark on the lining. Now our lining is 1 inch, okay. The bust line is 1 inch. Now on the under bust for our lining, I told us that we are marking 1.25, okay, so this is my 1.25. Now our waist must be the same with the fashion fabric, and that's 1.4. So I'll go ahead and connect. Now you can use your curve, but I don't know, I'm just used to working with freehand, okay. So you go ahead and connect your lining like so. I'll repeat the same thing on the front piece as well. Then I'll go ahead and join all this, press them open, and I'll see us. Okay, so I'm done. All right, so I've joined the sides. I have also pressed it, okay. You guys can see the way I folded it away like a triangle and pressed it down. I did the same on the chest line as well, okay. So I've pressed the skirt, okay. I ironed open all our seam lines. I did the same on the main fabric as well. Now there are two methods of joining your dress that I use, okay. One method is that we would have joined the front of the skirt to the front of this half length, okay, then the back of the skirt to the back of this half length, then you run a straight line by the sides, okay. That method is easier, so that if you have any form of adjustment, that's you're not sure of your shaping, okay, you go ahead and make use of this method I just explained, because it will be easier for you to just adjust it by the side. But if you're sure of what you have done, which with this method you can go ahead and join your dress this way, and you're sure of a perfect fit, okay. So now we have our skirt complete, and we have our blouse, our top part, which is our half length, complete as well, okay. Now we're going to go ahead and join it on the waist. So we're going to go ahead now and join it on the waist using our 0.5 inch sewing allowance that we left, okay. So I'll go ahead now, take this to the sewing machine, use ½ inch, okay, and I'm sewing them waist of the skirt to the waist of this blouse this way. So I'll take it to the machine and I'll sew it round using ½ inch. So I'll do the same on the lining as well. I'll go and join them on the waist, okay. So I'm joining the waistline of this to the waistline of the skirt part, okay, so that they'll become a single fabric like this, okay. And I'll press our seam lines open. So after joining it, then we will join the shoulder of the main fabric like so, front shoulder to back shoulder this way, okay. I'll do the same thing on the lining as well. So I'm done joining the fashion fabric and the lining, okay. So this is it. Now let me show us the sides. You can see how our design is aligning, okay. Now this is the front, okay. You can see the waist. All right, now I'll show us the inside because I pressed it open, okay. So this is the waistline. I pressed it flat. All right, now the next thing for us to do, I did the same thing on the lining as well. So the next thing for us to do is to fix the zip, okay. So I'll go ahead and fix the zip on the fashion fabric first, Okay, it's the same way that we fixed our zip on the skirt. So I'll fix the zip on the fashion fabric, then I'll use the lining to turn the neckline and turn the zip as well, just like we did on the basic skirt. Okay, so I'll do that, fix the zip, turn the neckline, then I will use then I'll also turn the hem of the dress. Okay, it's the same process like we did the basic skirt. Okay, if you know how we finished our basic skirt, that's the same thing that we're doing here.
All right,
All
guys,
right,
so I'm
so I'll go
done
ahead and do all
with
this
the dress. We're
and I'll
almost
see
done.
us.
So I went ahead to turn the fashion fabric with the lining. Now I turned the hemline as well. So I'll go ahead and use my steam iron to give this a good press. I also turned the neckline using the lining and the zip. Now what I did here is exactly the same thing we did in our basic skirt video. So if you've not seen that video, I'll leave the link in the description box. Now the final thing we have to do is to fix the sleeve. So I use the sleeve pattern that we drafted. I also leave the link in the description box. So I measured from the sleeve head to 19 inches, okay, which is my 3/4 length. Now I just slashed it, okay, then spread it, came down by 1.5 inches. Okay, so this is the sleeve I drafted, and the sewing allowance I added is 1 inch on the sides. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and stitch down exactly on the sewing allowance. Okay, now this is the beauty of your bust dart, because your sleeve is going to fit perfectly. Now I went ahead to fix my sleeve, okay, and this is it. Now we're done, but I later changed the sleeve, okay, to something else. All right, so this is the final outcome of the dress. Okay, so thank you guys for watching, and like, share, and leave your comments. Bye.